Hey everyone, this is Cradiac. This is my GameCube Portable update number 6, I believe I'm on. And hopefully I can get this whole video recorded because I keep on having video issues. So anyway, it's been a while since I recorded an update video on this. Finally got enough progress that I felt like another update video was warranted. So been working a lot on this since the last time that I had an update video. I've done a lot of casework, done a whole lot of troubleshooting. I've had a slew of issues. I'll kind of briefly go over some of the problems that I had on this. So hopefully if you're making a portable, you can avoid some of the mistakes that I made. And anyways, I'll get right into it. So one of the things that I've been working on, the C-stick, I was having a bunch of issues on that with the axis being inverted and just not operating right and quivering, and it ended up needing a new joystick because the one that I had was defective. I don't know if that was due to something I did or if it was just bad. And also somebody pointed out to me on BitBuilt forums and also online on the last update video that I did, they pointed out that the actual housing for both of my joysticks is it's rotated incorrectly. I'll show you what I mean. So this is the a controller. Anyways, if you notice the tip, like the point is at the top, bottom, left, right, and then like at the quarters. So basically, whenever I epoxied the housing into or the controller into the ZN housing, I have it like that. So at the top, it's flat. So if you notice, I don't know if you can tell in the video, the lighting's not the best, but at the top, you can probably tell better on this on the C-stick. See, like at the bottom, it's flat. It's supposed to be pointed there. So because of that, it doesn't get full range of motion. So it doesn't seem to affect the joystick at all, except for the fact that if you're trying to like lock it in the forward position, it won't lock as well because it doesn't have that corner to like notch to go in. The C-stick though, I guess because it's smaller, if it's not positioned in here perfectly, you won't get full functionality out of it. If you go up, you know, if you do see up, it's kind of jammed right now. I have to adjust the position. But if you go up, it may not actually register on the GameCube. So I'm going to fool around with that some more. Worst case scenario, I may have to just Dremel out a little notch and it won't be a perfect hexagon. So I'm definitely not going to take the whole thing out to rotate it because that would just be way too much work. So make sure that you pay attention to the orientation of that whenever you are putting the controller in here. So that's one thing that I had to deal with. And another thing was the GameCube board. After I was testing it out, and then at one point it stopped powering on, and when I was trying to figure out why, I noticed that the fuse on the voltage regulator had blown. So that probably sounds familiar because I had an issue similar to that in the first 1 or 2 update videos that I posted. The board I'm using now, I forget which revision it is, but it's the one that has the voltage regulator built into the motherboard. So I'm using this one. I think it says on the back. I don't know. Anyways, so the voltage regulator, all this stuff right here is where the voltage is regulated. So the way that it works is you've got a little power board. Your power supply is here. It comes, normally this is connected, but I've got it connected to wires right now. But it connects here, and then this is your power button, on-off button. And then this right here, that wire goes and connects to this. So in the beginning of the project, I was having problems with the voltage regulator because in the beginning I was using the one that had the detachable voltage regulator, which is this guy. So this is the detachable one. This one has it integrated, which is nice. So I was blowing the fuse on this because whenever I wired this up, I accidentally wired it backwards. So that was my own fault. This one's a little different. It was basically the same thing. Polarity was reversed. It was blowing the fuse, but it took me forever to figure that out. I thought that the GameCube was actually fried. That's why I've got another one in here, because I had somebody send me another one because I thought this one was blown. Ended up not being blown. It was just the fuse. But apparently, whenever whenever Nintendo made the GameCube, for some reason the jokers in the development department thought it would be fun to reverse the wires. So universally, red is positive voltage, black is ground. That's anything you ever use, that's the rule. Except for the GameCube. Now some GameCubes, it works that way. But with that one that I have over there and this board here, the red wire is actually ground. So make sure that you check all that stuff. And somebody told me that, and I still ended up messing it up. So make sure that you check that if you're having problems with your GameCube not powering on as you're, if you're doing a project, just make sure that you check that. So once I reversed what I thought was the correct polarity, it worked and everything was fine. So, and I also got the disk drive on here. So I used some epoxy putty. I think it's JB Water Weld is what it is. It's designed for like PVC piping and plastics that are going to be exposed to water. They have a plastic weld. I just wasn't able to find any in stores. So I used this stuff. It worked fine. Worked really great, actually. One package was enough to do this whole thing. I think I had a little bit left over. And then I just used Bondo to kind of smooth it out and get it all sanded nice. There were some holes in the housing that's just naturally there that I had to fill in. So anyways, I thought it turned out pretty nice. And I think that's pretty much it as far as the case goes. I've got some anchors already set up for the battery pack. I just haven't got it screwed in yet. But the battery pack is going to be resting, I think, right here on the inside of it. And then you're going to have the little control board. I'll show it to you in a second. But the little control board with the on-off switch, and then the charging port is going to be like all right here. And I'm probably going to put a speaker right around that area. I'm planning on just doing one speaker right now, but I may change my mind on that later. So another thing I've been working with, the battery that I went with, it's the same one that Mad Morta used in her GameCube Portable. She actually, I think, has a different one that she recommends now, but I had already got this one. But it's a Talent Cell 12-volt battery pack, which is nice because the GameCube runs off of 12 volts. The only thing that's not so great is as the battery discharges, you don't get the full 12 volts the whole time. So if it drops too much, then your GameCube powers off, even though this might still have some juice in it. So if you go with a higher voltage battery supply, you'll probably get a little bit better battery life out of it. I haven't done anything close to a rundown test to find out what the battery life is, but the other weird thing about this is the control board. Sorry, I know the lighting's not very good. Okay, just work with me. So this is the charging port for it. This is the 5-volt connection you just use for a USB. So this is the charging port, and it's also the 12-volt supply. Normally you would connect your 12-volt here. The cord would go to like your GameCube. And then if you want to charge it, you would have to disconnect it and then plug the charger up. And then you have to have the switch turned off. You can't have it turned on and charge it at the same time. So what's weird about that is obviously the GameCube is going to be wired directly to that little board. So when the switch is on, the GameCube would turn on. When the switch is off, the GameCube would turn off. But even with the switch off, if you go to charge it, the GameCube would turn on because it bypasses that switch, which is strange. So I'm going to be replacing this switch with a dual pin switch that basically will allow me to turn the GameCube on, and then it will allow me to turn the GameCube off, but still charge it without turning the GameCube on. Right now I just have the GameCube running through a separate switch so I can control that myself. And that works fine, for the time being. So I'm going to go ahead and hook this up just so you guys can see it powering on and in action. And I won't keep it turned on for very long because I don't have the heat sink in there right now, and I don't want it to get too warm. So on goes the battery pack, and then this is the switch for the GameCube. I don't have the audio amplifier hooked up just yet. I will be getting that probably by the next update video. I've got it. It's this little guy right here, this tiny little guy. So that's recommended on the BitBuilt forum, so should sound pretty good. So I've just got Dragon Ball Z Budokai 2 in here, breaking the mold because everybody else always tests their portable with Super Smash Brothers, but I lost mine. So you guys are gonna have to put up with some DBZ. But I'm just gonna do a quick little gameplay, just kind of showing that the buttons are working and everything. I probably won't mess with the C-stick too much because right now it's, I think it's not in there quite right because it's kind of sticking a little bit. But I don't have the memory card in yet. I'm gonna be probably doing the mod so that I can do a micro SD card for the memory card. Do training. So as you can see, everything's working okay. Right now the board's probably getting pretty warm without the heat sink. I'll probably get fussed at for that, but there we go. So as you can see, the buttons are working. Okay, there it goes. So it isn't really going to hurt anything if it gets too warm. It has a temperature gauge in there that senses if it gets too hot and shuts down or restarts. So it'll be fine. GameCube's tough. But anyway, so you know, you kind of get the idea. Everything's working. I've got all my buttons working. I've got my L, R, Z, and then the start is mapped to this button right here. So I don't have to have a start on the front. I've got my 3 buttons to control the LCD settings. Got my joysticks, my buttons. So basically the only thing I have to work on now is getting the switch so that I can get this finalized and get this get the holes cut out for my switch and everything and have it in the back here. And after I do that, I also have to get a little switch so that if you are playing a game like Resident Evil 4 that has multiple discs, you have to have a switch to simulate the lid opening so that you can replace the discs, otherwise it won't work. So I have to do that. And that is pretty much it. You know, oh, the audio amplifier, I've got to do that, and then I'll be painting it. So getting pretty close to the end now. I probably said that in the last video, but I mean it this time. Hopefully I won't have any other issues. I think all the scariest stuff is pretty much out of the way. I'm going to open this up real quick just so you can see the inside and see the way that I've kind of designed everything in here. So I'll do that real quick. All right, so this is the inside of it. So I've put a bunch of, I took the GameCube housing that it came from. This is the bottom of it. And a lot of these, hang on, a lot of these little guys that had screws going into them, I've repurposed those and epoxied them in the board so that I can have different things screwed down. I don't like to use too much epoxy on the and hot glue and stuff in here. I like to make it to where you can remove these things if you need to, in case you need to work on it or troubleshooting or just whatever. I don't like to have too many things permanently fixed in there. So just about everything you see here can be taken out. The controller can be taken out. These triggers can be taken out. The board can be taken out. It's just held together with, I've got those anchors and then some plastic spacers to kind of hold it in place. I've got another one here. It's not duct taped. That's just holding 2 plastic spacers together. So it's not duct taped to the board. I've got my audio. Right now I've got the ground for my LCD, the video for that, and then the 5 volts that the LCD runs off of. It's one of the backup monitors that you use for cars or for car DVD players. It's supposed to be able to run off of 5 to 12 volts, so I haven't had any issues with it shutting off, running off of 5 volts so far, so hopefully it'll continue to be okay. I've got all the wires for the 2 controller halves running underneath the motherboard, and then I've got the cable coming from the controller, and then it's hooked into here, and I've got everything that connects just about is on headers again, so I can disconnect it. I don't like to have everything permanently fixed because I screw stuff up, so whenever I do screw stuff up, it's nice if it easily disconnects. So I've got this wired into the board, but then I've got it on headers for the battery. This is for like clock settings and stuff, and then everything else here is for the controller. And you also have the reset button on here. I'm not going to use that. If you need to reset it, you can just turn the GameCube off and turn it back on. So that's basically how I got that set up. This is the disk drive, this is that half. So I have everything kind of just floating in here. I've got my, well, I've got headers for those two wires right there. That is for the motor, maybe, I think. I can't remember. But I've got that on headers just because if it moves too much, then those wires break. And I was having problems with it breaking off the board. Anyways, not a really big deal, but I wanted to make it this obviously is permanently fixed in the housing, and that means that the laser and the motor are permanently fixed into it as well. So I wanted to make it to where if I have to take this thing off, I can disconnect this header, just like these can be disconnected, these wires can be disconnected. So this can be completely come off. You know, theoretically, if this board went bad, I can replace it without having to fool with any of the wiring that goes to the rest of it, which is nice. And then this port right here, I actually have kept the regular port, and it plugs into this. This is the only port that I left intact, and it just plugs right into that. And it's rigid enough that it supports the weight of this board just fine. And then the heatsink runs underneath it. So I've got the heatsink here. I just have to put some Arctic Silver on there and put it on there. So, and the only other thing, so this is the switch I was telling you about that for the disk drive. Normally with the disk drive, whenever the lid is closed, it depresses these two switches and completes the circuit, and then, or I guess shorts the circuit, however you want to look at it, and tells it that the lid is closed. And whenever they're not depressed, then it tells it that the lid is open. So I'm just going to make a switch and bypass that, so that way you can, you've got a switch to control it yourself. And let's see, the battery is going to be going right here. I've got a little thing that I made. It's super glued and then reinforced with duct tape, because why not? So the batteries, hang on, I'll go ahead and show you how that's going to look. The batteries are going to be sitting right there, and then this thing is going to fit over it and screw into the bottom of the board. And then this thing will probably run like right there. So that's where your switch will be on the other side of that. So that's pretty much where we are at. Sorry for the long video. I had a lot of stuff to explain. So if you're still watching, thanks for sticking with me. If you're not watching, then you're not listening to this, and it doesn't make any difference. So anyways, appreciate you guys coming by and checking out the channel. I'll have another update up as soon as I can. I'm going to keep on working on this. I hope to have it done very soon, because I've been working on it for several months. So anyways, till the next time, adios.